Hi everyone, this is Oph, and you are watching Simply SCAdian No Title Required. Tonight is our season ender, the ending of season 3, and I'm just checking, doing my geek girl stuff at the same time. I can't do both. I can't talk and check things out. Multitasking fail. All right, so Simply SCAdian No Title Required Dependent Panel. We have got with us tonight 4 incredible guests, but before we dive into them and what we're going to talk about, you should know that Simply SCAdian No Title Required is a show for non-peers, non-barons, landed or a court, no royals, nobody. It's just regular folk in the SCA, because we have found that the people who are just like you and me are the ones who have some really incredible things to add. Tonight's show, so the other thing is that we have a form on our Facebook page. If you know of somebody who would be a great guest, please recommend them to us. We're going to start working right after Penzic. I'll start lining up guests for season 4, which will start in September. So please do that. All right, now without further ado, in the order you see them on your screen, we have Lucas Abbernathy, also known as my co-host, but he's a guest tonight. He is an apprentice. We have Solveig Bjarnardottir. Bjarnardottir. I keep throwing S's in there. Representing proteges. We have Raphael di Merisi, who is a provost, and Tariq AllSanna AfFjall, who is a squire. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. So let's start off real quick. Let's go through, how did you find the SCA? Solveig.
Goodness, right off the bat. All right. Back in 2010, I was at a New Year's Eve party, freshly-ish out of college, no job, no nothing at that point. So I did what any average person does. They learn how to make chainmail because, you know, Renaissance fairs, as you do. And I brought my super period rolly kit with me and my pliers, and I'm sitting in the middle of this party, and a gentleman, whose Monday name no longer plays anymore, Matthew Studley, says, "You make chainmail. You need to join my household and do all these things." And I looked at him and I said, "What are all these words coming out of your mouth?" So he, again, continued to word vomit at me. And I said, okay. He told me about a craft night that has been going on for at least more than 13 years strong. I showed up, and in New Hampshire, something I didn't know is that you never go to someone's front door, and you also don't knock. So I learned these 2 things that very night, and so I went to the front door and I knocked, and found out that these were not the things you do. And I went inside with my rolly kit. I was introduced to about 8 or 10 individuals that night. Learned about brewing, learned about people who are sewing different things, and decided I would go back again. And then after 3 weeks, they go, "Are you going to Burka?" And I went, "What the heck is a Burka?" For anyone who doesn't know, Burka is a giant shopping event that happens in Manchester, New Hampshire. You're looking at about 1,200 people who come through the door for mostly shopping, a heckin' lot of court, a whole bunch of bear pit fights, and sometimes there's classes and a whole bunch of meetings. So I showed up. I ended up working gate my first shift. I went to the ball and I was enamored that night. I'm not ashamed to say I did not go to court my first event, especially a 4-hour court. And I was hooked. And then 13 years later, here I am.
Wonderful. All right. Raphael, how did you find the SCA?
Yeah. So I was in high school and I was like sitting, I was like in a middle school that like didn't feed that much into that high school. So I didn't know too many people there, but I ended up at this table, and a couple other kids my age I've been hanging out with and like found out about it. So it turns out that we had this guy who worked grounds crew at the high school who was part of the SCA. And as part of that, he was able to get space in the field house for both fencing and armored to play in every week. So, you know, my friends kept trying to get me to show up and I kept blowing them off. And then eventually come March, freshman year, I was like, okay, cool, let's try it out. So that's now my household. I've been to multiple of their weddings. No one from that table in high school is still playing besides me, but I'm glad I'm here.
Awesome. Tariq,
Can you hear me? Okay.
yeah, we hear you fine. Thank you.
So contrary to popular belief, I've always been kind of a nerd. Who knew? Comic books, superheroes, writing them, drawing them, all things nerd. So at my job, this is maybe what, 2010, 11-ish. Sounds about right. Close enough. I met this guy named Sean. Now, mind you, Sean was another designer, and he came to my desk, and we were kind of chopping it up. And he noticed that I had all these action figures, and I had the collection of Speed Racer cars because I wanted all the Speed Racer cars, and just various toys and sundries. And he was like, "Hey, you're a nerd. You should come to this thing that I participate in." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Yeah, I do medieval fighting, and I dress in armor, and I have a sword, and I kill guys and hit them upside the head." And I, of course, in my infinite wisdom, was like, "Nah, that's what white people do. I'm cool. I don't want none of that." And he said, "No, you got to come and you got to check it out." So I was like, we were cool. I was like, "All right, I'll check it out." And I went to a meeting. It was at the Cleflins, and by coincidence, I caught they were having their baronial tournament my first night, and the Cleflins was doing it big. They were doing the introduction. It was like walking into my first Crown tournament. I had never seen anything like this, and they were doing all the pomp and circumstance. The barons were passing out roses to the consorts. Everybody was lined up. And I remember seeing this and going, do you got armor? Can I fight tonight? What's good? I need to do this. And yeah, that was that. I was like, okay, I'm in. Let's go. Let's what do we do? And that was that. And I've been here, 12 years now?
Nice. All right, Lucas.
My gateway drug was Ren fairs, man. I was a Ren fair actor, and I think I was 23 when I got invited to this thing called Penzig that people were telling me about, and all of my Ren fair people from Jersey were going out to this thing, so I went out and I kind of skirted the periph for a while, but then I think the first real legit thing I started doing was known world players at Penzig. And I do events at home and stuff, and I fenced at local practices and whatnot. But weirdly enough, I just played on the periph for a while, and then I guess maybe I don't know, right before pandemic, I reached out to this person that I really liked from KWP and said I'd like to start doing this legitimately. I don't really know how to start. And then that was kind of how I met my Laurel. Really, and then just the last couple of years I've been really active in my barony, now that we've kind of come back to live stuff. But yeah, I kind of really just stayed on the periph for a long time, but probably should have been doing it all along.
You should have. Yes, I agree. All right, Raphael. So what does being a dependent mean to you?
Yeah, so for the biggest piece for me is having a sounding board. Right, so my mod's been around forever. He's, I'm not gonna throw him anything new at this point. Right, and being able to pull from that experience, it's not a particularly hands-on relationship most of the time, but it's hey, I was thinking about doing this, or oh, should I try and try out for King's Champion this time? Do I want to commit to that schedule? Should I go over there and do this? What would this look like? Hey, can you check the wording on this thing? And just having someone who I know and I trust to have my back and not bullshit me, to be like, hey, what about this? And yeah, Terry has not been bullshitting me the entire time.
Tariq, what does it mean to you?
To be a dependent, it is a very formal teacher-student relationship. It just so happens that my night, Agbando Solveig, who has also been in the SCA for a good amount of time. You know, I am his student. He is my teacher. I am on the path, almost, you know, to be hopefully become a knight someday. And I am committed to learning all the things that he has to teach me. And in return, I give him service. I help him with his household. I help him, you know, arm up. I help him lift and carry stuff. I tried to give him the best counsel that I have based on my experiences. And I try, you know, and this, I'm not too bad, but I try not to embarrass him. I never want to have someone say, hey, your student is out there acting a plumb fool. You might want to rethink your situation. So we've got this really good, and plus it helps that we're, you know, I'd like to believe, yeah, we're friends. So that's my guy, and we do things together. And what was the young man before me? His
Raphael.
name, like Raphael said, you know, he's not gonna bullshit me. He keeps it 100 all the time. You know, straight no chaser. Sometimes I wish he would use a chaser, but that's not what he does. It's here's what's best for you as you travel down this path, hopefully to knighthood that I have already traversed, and he's still trying to become a better knight.
Okay, Lucas.
I was going to say, I think for me, it was to be a dependent. It gives me guidance. Like when I reached out to you, I think the reason I didn't play for so long is because I would go to something and no one would tell me what I was supposed to do. You know what I mean? So I just felt really disconnected, even though I was there doing a thing, even though I was at 100 Minutes War and I was in the fencing competition and whatnot, and I had a fencing teacher and everything. I just felt so disconnected. I didn't feel like I knew what I was doing. So I need that person to reach out to you to be like, what's next? Well, now what do I do? Well, now what do I do? Because I don't know that I have necessarily as much of an end game as like listening to Tariq talk about like for him, the goal is knighthood. I don't know that for me, the goal is to be a laurel. I think I'm still too new at this to understand what that even means as far as like what I need to do to get there. I just need somebody to tell me, well, now do this, you know, and it's like, oh, okay, now I'll go do this. You know, you told me once upon a time, you gave me some things to do. And then you were like, now go win your Barony's Bardic, like put your hat in the ring, try to do that. And I did that. So it sounds like, okay, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, and I need that person. Otherwise, you know, I'm an actor, so I need direction. And I feel like that's what you provide. And I'm going to say again, just like everybody else, you don't bullshit me. And if you don't like something we're talking about and whatnot, I feel like we're close enough that you tell me, no, don't do that. And here's why, or whatnot. And that we have that open dialogue, but there is this teacher-student relationship that I really appreciate. So I the guidance is key. The mentorship is key.
Okay, Solveig.
I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but I think one of the biggest pieces, again, as Raphael had indicated, is being a sounding board. I find that I often have these grandiose dreams of creating new events or supporting people or creating these new guilds and going on and on and on. And sometimes, you know, my mentor needs to tell me, no, that's too much for one person to do in less than a month's time. Please stop. And with that comes reining me in. As many of us may notice, we have this thing called helium hand, and mine has a hot air balloon on it. I am always trying to jump, and help people and do whatever I can, to be there. And he reminds me that, no, you have too much going on. And with that, he reminds me that saying this 2-letter word, I think the word is no, is an okay answer sometimes. In fact, a lot of times that no can be an okay answer. When there's times that I may not know how to navigate some of the waters, like, yes, I've been around for 13 years, but sometimes I don't have all the answers, and he provides me guidance and support. I had something the other day where I'm the provost of the guild, and we were having some communication issues, and I was trying to support, my chatelaine and work through the situation. And so I reached out to my peer and I said, hey, can I get some feedback on how to manage this, and where can I go? And do I need you? Do I need you to step in? He's there to listen to me kvetch. As a good raised Jew, I learned kvetch a lot, and he lets me kvetch so my poor husband doesn't hear it 24/7. He speaks on my behalf because of the society that we have, that sometimes it's not necessarily my place to say something. And, we do have a bit of a hierarchy. So he's there to speak on my behalf. He'll speak up for me if he finds that I'm being ignored, or there's an opportunity for me to have, or he'll steer me towards those opportunities. He's family. He's like the brother I've always wanted, yet with a fatherly figure there. He gave me siblings. I've got, protege siblings. I have Pelican siblings who've been elevated. I've got student siblings. And he also gives me the hard truths that sometimes, Solveig, you're being dumb, cut it out. Or Solveig, this is not a good thing. Or Solveig, you put your foot in your mouth, you need to cut that out. So he will give me the hard truths that you made this mistake, you need to fix this, and you need to apologize, or you need to do this. So, I mean, being, a subordinate and a student to someone is this whole amalgamation of family, friend, teacher, mentor, kick in the butt. And I'm glad that I have not just one, but two to kind of steer me in the way. I'm also trouble, so they keep me out of trouble.
They try. Okay, Tariq, did you ask Ike, or did Ike ask you?
Well, you would ask me a tough question like that. I believe we just kind of like naturally gravitated toward each other, and we were hanging out, and we did like a thing where I was in the household first, but I had never asked it, because I was totally new, so I had no idea what was going on or anything. I was just, there was like a period so many years ago that I just totally got dressed and went and go hit people, and I was just having fun, and that was good enough. And then I started to get better as a fighter, and I started to gain, I started to gain SCA currency, which is known as renown. I started to get known, and people started to see me, and they started to know my name, as opposed to, hey, there's a black guy walking around. So at some point, he said, hey, you're doing the thing, let me teach you how to do the thing. And I said, okay, that's cool. But we had already had this relationship established before we had even, gotten to that point. I wanted to make sure that this was something that I wanted to do on my own, whether I had a teacher or not. If I could have, if Ike Brander had not been there, I still would have been playing the game and having fun. And I wanted to make sure that that was indeed the case. before I started a real investment on, both financial and time.
Lucas.
I believe I came to you and you told me no and said, yeah. No, because I had no idea. And you said, no, pump the brakes. And we had a long talk about it. And then you were like, all right, nothing for a year. Let's just talk. Let's just be friends. I'll answer questions, but no. And then we came back and kind of reevaluated that. But in the interim, in that first year, again, most of that was on Zoom. You wound up kind of, okay, come here, we're going to do this thing. Come help me with this thing. Come help me with this thing. And again, gave me that purpose that okay, this is what I do. But I'm pretty sure I asked you, and you said no.
I would do that. Ray, did you ask or did he ask?
I most certainly asked, because I think I mentioned not too long ago that I'm a little bit hard to handle and a little bit difficult to rein in. And I have a big personality. I know this is really hard to tell. And all the folks of the northern region were too smart to tell me yes. So I went as far south as I could go to Bacale, and I said, hey, I know you've managed some very powerful personalities. How would you like another one? And his response was, well, yeah, I think we can do this as long as you're sure you know what you're getting yourself into. And here we are today.
All right, Raphael.
He asked me. Yeah, it was like a year or so. I think it was like 2 years after I came out from college. So I'd been part of the local group for while I was in high school. I went off to college somewhere else, I came back. So I had known him for a while. I hadn't known him as well when I was younger. And he's like, all right, your game's doing pretty good. I'll help you with that, but let's work on the other stuff. I'm happy to be a sounding board, here to help with all that. And I sat on it for a good week or two. Where we got to the pub after practice, and I was like, it's a big thing. And I remember years ago, I was talking to someone who was showing me how they had this is my third Squire belt and my second apprentice belt and my second or third protege belt. And I didn't want to do that. And I was like, if this is a thing I'm signing up for, I want to do it once. Right. Everyone has their own path. People have reasons, but I was like, I don't want to have to go through multiple folk. Let me take some time and think about it. And I came back with a yes. But I definitely sat on that for a minute.
So if somebody came to each one of you and said, I'm thinking about becoming a dependent in whatever yours is, whether it's protege, provost, squire, apprentice, I'm thinking about asking master, mistress, whatever, blue blah, what would you say to them, Lucas?
Why them? That'd be my first question. I think just listening to everybody talk and just knowing how I felt about our relationship before the apprenticeship was even a thing, I could answer that question and say, well, because I feel like we're very similar people, and the parts that aren't similar, I feel like complement each other. We were friends first, and friends, and I'd have to say colleagues, and then even the, being directed by you and whatnot, there was a relationship in place first that made me go, I'm going to talk to this person anyway. I'm going to ask them these questions anyway. I might as well try to make this legit. And then that would be my first question to somebody, be like, why them? And if their answer was something like, oh, well, they're an awesome fighter, or, everybody says they're the best storyteller or something, I'd be like, I don't know if that's necessarily the best reason to go with that. I think you have to click with the person first, because you're going to be doing a lot with them and spending a lot of time. So I think why them would be my first question, and probably the only wisdom that I can impart at this point about it, is that you consider your reason for why you're asking that person.
Okay. Solveig.
I would ask them first, why do you want a peer? And what are you looking to get out of this relationship? Are you looking for a specific skill? Are you looking to navigate PLQs? Are you looking for somebody who balances you? Are you looking for somebody to keep you out of trouble? Are you looking for a friend to support you? I would want to know what they are looking to get out of the relationship, and also, again, why they're seeking a peer at that time. Do they think, they're in a good spot of their life? Do they need to get into a better spot in their life? And really, what is their goals out of it? And if they don't have any goals or they can't answer you, I would ask them to think about that and reevaluate.
Okay, Raphael.
Yeah, I think building off both Solveig and Lucas's points, right? It's what does this person get you that no one else can? Like, do they get you access to this network of people? Can they teach you this one thing? Are they going to help you over here? Is it geography? Is it politics? Right? Like, could someone else be, right? Like, you might be hanging out with this person a lot right now, but like, it's hopefully going to be a long-term relationship. What does this person get you that no one else can? I think the other thing to think about a lot is being good at the thing and being good at mentoring the thing are often unrelated skills. Right? Like, in the fighting world, there's a lot of top fighters who are bad at teaching. There aren't a ton of top teachers who are terrible at fighting, but a lot of the top teachers aren't the best fighters. Right. These are both, like, being the best fighter and being the best teacher are both like worthy goals to have. But they're different things. Right. And same thing if you look at like professional sports, of like the world's best athletes don't then coach the world's best teams.
Right.
So are you going for this person because they're the best at the thing? Or is it because they're the best teacher for that thing? Because if you're thinking it's one and the thing you want is the other, it's going to be a bit of an unwelcome surprise.
Tariq.
Echoing everything that the previous three people just said, I will go ditto. And then I guess the only other thing, and I was just thinking about this, one, do you know the person at all? If you don't, I would say is that somebody you would want to get to know better? And two, it's one thing when it's nice and sunny outside and everybody's happy and everything's going great, going the way you want to. Is this somebody you would want to teach you and support you, and you support them, and all of those good things when it's completely 100% crap outside and things aren't quite going the way that you hope they would go? That's you see a lot of the true character of a person, not when the sun is up, but when it's raining and when it's all not rainbows and unicorns. So
All right. So one of the things, I was just having a conversation this weekend with a friend about the armored world, the rapier armored combatants. It's okay for you to say, Raphael, I want to be a master of defense. Tariq, it's okay for you to say, I want to be a knight. But it's not okay to some people, this is not how I feel about it, but this is what the persistent rumor is, that Solveig cannot stand up and say, I want to be a pelican one day. I want to be a laurel one day. Lucas can't say that he wants that because there's this lack of humility. So what's the difference, do you think, and that's a heavy question, I know, but it's something that I'm really thinking about lately is what's so bad about Solveig wanting to be a Laura Pelican? What's wrong with that? And what's wrong with her stay? And I don't know if that's the case for you, Solveig, or not. I'm just saying, right? Whereas Tariq, you can say, I want to be a knight. Raphael, you can be a mod.
To a point.
Go ahead.
To a point. I mean, I'm not out there with a big, billboard going, hey, because, but I would tend to say, because I'm not as active as within the Pelican community. I think it's probably or the Laurel community, even though I'm working on it. Hey, Mrs. Millicent. Hey, what's up? But I just think it's something that's within the community. There's old school folks who are just like, don't talk about it, be about it. And then there's new school folks that are like, get your goal and go grab it, go get it. And there are people that fall somewhere in the middle. So I think it's just a matter of if you're serious about doing the thing. Like I was asked very early, what was my intent? This is when I first got my my squire belt and my chain, and it was Sir Ephraim, and I answered him because I thought about it for a little bit, and I answered him, I'm really just trying. My goal, even today, my goal is to be the best version of me that I can possibly get or possibly be. If that happens, if it happens that at some point I am recognized as someone who could possibly be a part of the order, that's great. I would love, I won't front. I would love to do that, but I'm not going to feel any worse for saying this is the best version of me. I can fight really well. I can art really well. I help people really, I help people because I want to help them, not because I'm doing it to be seen. I try to be a good person, both in garb and out of garb. So that was always my goal. So I don't know what the communities are like within the various peerages. So that might be a question to ask some of them.
Solveig, since I kept throwing your name in there as my example, what are your thoughts?
I think that the art and service community are very much about the support of the lower tiers, so to speak. So if you're a Pelican, they would expect to see you to want to grow and be a part of that. And that's saying perhaps that you want to be a Pelican is that maybe you're doing it for the wrong reasons. And with the Laurel, again, are you doing your art for art and not for the passion and the development of growth that comes with that path? For me, I know that my personal path has just simply to be a respected human in my field. I've been a musician almost my entire life, and making music tangible for individuals has always been my goal in helping people grow. Would I like to see my peerages? Absolutely. But the respect and joy that comes with them are their own achievements. And I think that's perhaps the path that that the Pelican and the Laurel want to see. Is they don't want you to see the cookies, so to speak. They want you to enjoy and make the growth as it is, as opposed to saying, I'm only doing this so I can get this title. And I think the difference between those and the fighting community is that shows you that you have an attainable level of growth, that you have hit point A, you have hit point B, and now you've hit point C. I think with the arts and with service, there are no points, just continuous growth. And you're always going to continue to grow as a fighter, and you're always going to continue to grow as a fencer and the thrown weapons and archery and things like that. But they're different types of growth. So I think that's where the behavior differences come from.
Okay, Raphael, do you have anything to add? Lucas?
Yeah. So all of what both Tariq and Solveig are saying, 100%. I think there's so I think people who say that folks on this peerage path versus that peerage path should be louder or quieter are stupid and should shut up. 100%. That said, right, I think like if we look at right, the fighting, for instance, if you're in any other like an athletic activity that isn't in the SCA, right, in Olympic fencing, when you win your match, you rip your mask off, you chuck it on the ground, and you cheer. Right, in basketball, like you don't have a mask, but like you jump around, people lift you up, they spray champagne or whatever. Right, in football, like they dump the thing on you, and that's not in our culture. Right, if Tariq wins a tournament, it's weird if he like jumps up and down a lot and like screams. Whereas if he like hugs it out with the guy he just beat in finals and then shakes someone's hand and says thank you, and then quietly like walks up like when he's called up in court, that's more of what's expected. So I think that the SCA's culture overall is a little bit quieter about what our own goals are when we're public facing than we see in some other activities. That said, I don't think it should be different across the 4 different paths.
See, I was going to say that's why I needed the Laurel. Because like I'll equate it to martial arts. So I studied martial arts for years. Yes, you can walk in the door the first day and say, I want to be a black belt. And everybody goes, aren't you special? Everybody wants to be a black belt. Can you be a really good white belt first? Can you be a really good blue belt now? Can you be, and there's measurable things along the way. Whereas I feel like Laurel status, that's the thing, that's the black belt, for a lot of people. But it's the only thing to say. When I got my Order of the Silver Brooch, I didn't even know that was a thing. You know what I mean? Like I got a thing and I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I got a thing and I was happy I got a thing and I wear it and proudly and whatnot. But I guess that's what I mean by what's next. I don't know what the steps are. They're not very obvious. And I think, from when I was fencing and from what I've seen of heavy, winning things, going to those practices, those kind of things. I in my community, at least, Bardic is not really, we have like one kind of Bardic event. But
you got a brooch. I want a brooch.
And then, so we got the one Bardic event, and then it's kind of a thing that like you do after everything else is done. But I go to all these fighting tournaments, I go to all these all these different things. So it seems like the martial events are way more obvious as to the steps along the way. Like, oh wow, I had a really good day today. You know what I mean? But I don't have enough Bardic competitions to be like, all right, I could have done that better, and I won this thing, and you know what I mean? There's no like levels to it. Also, I think with the Bardic arts too, it's encompasses so many different things that it's like, well, I don't know. If I was a weaver, I would have different steps to take to improving my craft than being a storyteller or a singer or making garb or countless other things that are all kind of contained under this arts thing.
Right.
So I feel like that's why. And again, I've never. It's weird because when you brought up the question, I've never been told not to say I want to be a Laurel, but I feel it when I'm around the community, and I've been to elevations and things like that. I feel like, don't say it. Okay. And I don't know why that's in the back of my head, but when you brought up the question, I was like, oh wow, yeah, I would never say that because I feel like I'd piss some people off. Basically saying like, one day I'd like to be one of you. You know what I mean? Again, that's not a decision I've made for myself yet. But like right now I just like playing the game. But yeah, but I definitely have that feeling of if you say it, people will get upset.
So can I add to that? Lucas just added a really good point. In the fighting community, if I'm winning tournaments, I mean, everything is really highly visible, right? You're going to see me if I'm doing well, or if I'm fighting Duke so and so, and I beat Duke so and so, and we're always encouraged to go out and fight. If I'm at an event and I don't know anybody at the event, go fight everybody at least 2 or 3 times. As an artisan, as I am also an artisan, I don't really get those opportunities. I'm not in a competition. The only person that I feel like I'm in competition as an artist, as a calligrapher, and as an illuminator is myself. And if I don't reach out to other artisans or other laurels who are interested in what I'm doing, then I don't get that information. I don't get that visibility. I've still got to do the thing, but you're talking, and you can go back to just a couple of weeks ago, Crown Tournament. I was busy and everybody saw me, and I wasn't even fighting. So you can imagine how that is versus an A&S situation where, you get a couple people in, and hopefully you get people to come in and see your stuff and to comment and to vote and to judge and to do all those things. So there might be something also in that's just accessibility to the like I couldn't tell you, and this is no diss to anyone else here on the panel. I could not tell you what it would take for them to gain entrance into the other into the other peerages. I would guess to be an MOD, you would have to really be one heck of a fighter, kind of similar to my path. I'm as a laurel, you have to be the best of the best, and that's not only doing it but teaching it, explaining it, and probably doing it in a period manner, doing it the way that it was done when it was done, and in some cases, putting your spin on things, putting yourself into that thing that you love so very much that you've researched, and now it's become a part of you. So now you start to think, if I want to do something within that manner, how would I do it using the information that I know? Mm-hmm. And as far as being a Pelican, I have no idea.
Who knows? I mean, seriously, Solveig, like, it's the hardest thing I think, to try to understand what the hoops are. And I hate that they put hoops in front of you, but it really is. Somebody told me just this weekend, she said that service to your local group is in the mid realm, it's called the Purple Fret, your AOA level service award. And then to serve your region is your Silver Crescent, right? Is your Dragon's Heart out in the mid realm. To serve the kingdom or the society, that's when you're doing Pelican work. And I was like, oh, nobody's ever broken it down. Not like that's not anything on my radar, but like nobody ever broke it down that they had even broken it down that much. So how do you feel about the ambiguousness of aspiring towards a Pelican, if that's something you aspire to?
It's exhausting. I mean that with love in my heart, that it's exhausting. Similar to what you just described, Zoph, that's been described to me in the same way. And the other part that comes into it is that service to your art doesn't necessarily count towards your service path specifically. And that's a big piece that I've heard often. I work a lot with the College of Performers. I set up a lot of Bardic events specifically because I want to see Bardic in the Kingdom grow. We have a huge Bardic community in the East Kingdom, significantly larger than most other kingdoms I've seen. And because we're such a large kingdom, geographically, as well as population wise, it can be difficult. So being told that my service to my art, even though it's service without performance directly related to it, can be emotionally exhausting, but that's where I want to spend my time. I can't necessarily run all over the kingdom, figuratively and literally. Again, we run from Nova Scotia all the way down to Delaware. So we're huge, and it's financially restrictive. We have a lot of individuals who are not able-bodied, who can't travel. And so it can be a lot to say that you need to serve your kingdom. Some folks are really great retainers. Some folks are great at being in the background and doing digital work. There was I'll call it a rumor because I can't confirm this, but the work that we did during the pandemic was said to not count because it was all online. So there's a lot of, push and pull of this, of what is legitimate service, where is your service running? And I'll say unashamedly, yes, I aspire to be a peer, but it's not because of the accolades that come with it, but it's the knowledge that I'm a reputable resource for people to come to. And so that's my joy. And so understanding what we can count and why we count it and where we count it, I really feel personally that service is service is service. There's another argument about art as a service. Again, I do pewter work. That's not my main thing, but I want to see people celebrated. We have a lack of medallions to give away in the kingdom, so I make medallions for people. And there are folks who do scroll work where they're not aspiring to be scribes, but they still want to give back. And so art as a service, we have individuals who do tailoring for the crown all the time. They're not, trying to become costuming laurels. They're doing it for the love of giving to the community. And so those are aspects that, we need to look to as well. And so when you ask, what is, this ambiguous behavior of knowing that we can't speak to it and where it's broken down to, again, I say it's exhausting. It doesn't stop me. I love doing what I do. I love serving others. I love serving my kingdom in whatever capacity I can do. I love serving other kingdoms, but it's exhausting.
Rami commented on our video. He said, "Endless hoops to peerage," and that's something. Have any of you encountered those hoops? Right, that they say, "Here, do this," and you do this, and they go, "Okay, now do this." Right, that's what we mean when we talk about the hoops. Have any of you encountered that?
See, I don't think I've encountered it necessarily. I mean, again, because all my experience with that necessarily for Laurel or for Bardic Arts is with you, but I haven't really. I haven't really done a whole lot, because that's the thing I was going to say earlier when Tariq was talking, was that I agree with him 100%. It's way more obvious for fighters because there's all these types of things. But like, even if you're creating something, if you're working with your hands, you're making a thing. But I feel like sometimes I'm rehearsing pieces no one's ever going to hear because I have very little opportunity to go out and do that. So again, it doesn't incentivize me to really learn anything. So this is why I keep coming to you and saying, here's an idea. Give me a story to learn, because I have to do it. I want to do it, but there's not much opportunity. But I haven't really encountered that lately. As we were discussing earlier, I've gotten more involved with service. I autographed an event. I wrote what we call Quest for the Quest for Wit and Wisdom for Setmore Swamp. Like these service things, and I did get recognized for it. I got my Bronze Tower, which is awesome. But I kind of feel like I do feel like in again, the unspoken hoop is there of like, okay, well, what do I need to do now? Because I've hit some roadblocks. I've hit a couple, I'll use the word gatekeepers along the way that are like, oh, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Let us handle this stuff right. And I'm like, because when you talked about Helium Hand, that's I was like, I'll do it. And then suddenly when I'm doing too much, now I don't, I've had a bad month. So, I have, I told you.
I know.
And part of it could be in my head. That's why I'm trying not to, slam anybody. But yeah, I mean, again, so I feel it more on that side than the other side. I feel like I lack opportunity in my pursuit of being a Laurel, if that's, and then in my service, I feel hoops.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody encounter hoops?
Oh
I
yeah.
think
Yeah. Did you, Raphael? Go ahead.
Tariq, if you want to go for it.
no, yeah, you go ahead.
Okay.
I'll go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm both an apprentice as well as a provost. So for my ANS work, it's historical combat. I have a shelf and a half of 500-year-old fencing manuals that I write essays on and help teach people how to use so they can also win tournaments. And one of the projects we had to do, so I'm the Society ANS deputy for historic combat. And one of my kingdom level deputies helped make a separate category for us for ANS competitions. I know I entered one years ago and there wasn't really a great space. And they're like, okay, so you're going to be in performance. And I was like, okay, so here's my interpretation of this book. And they're like, yeah, but it's not theatrical enough. So my like day job is like I run a performance company. So I was like, I know how to do that. That's just not the project I'm currently working on here. Like I know how to do a show, that's just not the thing. So I think that definitely like finding, and I know several laurels who like never entered contests. So I think like that is a lot less clear. As well, I'd say one of my bigger critiques of the award system in the SCA is how unclear it can often be, right? Even for fighters, it would seem that the answer might be like, all right, be a stand-up person, be good at fighting, and be good at teaching fighting. But it's not, right? There's always these like hidden intangibles that never get spelled out great. So I definitely have seen a lot of folks been put through extra hoops without any real answers to what those hoops are.
Yeah. Tariq.
There is one person who has been really, really horrible to me and makes me jump through hoops all the time. And sometimes I really don't like that person, and that person really makes me sick. And that person really is just me. I get in my own way a bunch of times, and I'm in my own head, and I'm learning to be in the moment and just do and be. Don't think of it. Don't, like for a minute, it can be a bit of a mind screw. You're thinking one thing and maybe they're thinking, what are they thinking about me? What am I not doing? Blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, chill. Think back. And this was a lot of advice that I've gotten recently. Think back when you were doing this without the chain and without the belt, how much fun you were having, and go back there and rediscover that thing. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just kind of like loosey goosey and trying to get me to stay out of my way.
Right. Solveig, anything to add?
I think just on the Laurel side of things, because similar to Lucas, my path is of a fleeting art, and people want to see the performances, but then we also have this kind of headspace that the performance arts are kind of the last level of importance for the arts. And then on top of that, nobody knows what to do with us, similar to what Raphael was describing. For instance, we have an event called St. Eligius here, and I had talked about entering that with performance as well as research. And they said, well, we don't have a rubric for that at all. And then the East Kingdom's ANS rubric for ANS champs, the rubric that they have developed isn't quite suitable for the performance arts yet. We've had individuals try to compete in it, but they didn't score well, not because their works weren't excellent, but because the information is not built for the performing arts. So that's been the biggest hoop I've had to jump through, is legitimizing my art, so to speak, And then with service is what is enough service? Who is saying that your service is enough, that you did things correctly? I've done everything from run little, 60-person events, and I've also co-ran Burka last year. I've, done Gate for 1,200 person, 1,200 people events. I've created rubrics and documents and so it's what is enough. And that, again, on the service path, it's not clear. It's not clear what they want to see and what work is good enough and how you've communicated is enough. So those are those hoops.
Yeah.
I think it's tough because I think what most of us are asking as far as that is we'd really like a clear path, but we are also intentionally doing whatever it is because we love the thing we do. It's not that we want to progress, but we just want to know we're doing the right thing sometimes, or that we're moving in the right direction. And that's not the same thing as saying like, well, I want to be this so bad and I want to skip all the steps. And I just, you know what I mean? And I think that that's where the miscommunication is coming. When you say something like, I want to be a Laurel, it's like, well, slow down, do your art for your art's sake, get good at that and whatnot. No, yeah, I do want to do that. But since there's only one step, this is not much measurable in the interim. You've only given me one carrot. You've only given me one thing to work for. And then when it's so unclear as to what is enough, and then so I think that has a lot to do with that as far as, and again, coming back to what we're here for, I think that ultimately is the role of a good mentor in any of these things, is to say like, okay, yeah, that's kind of the path, but here's what I want you to do to that. You know what I mean? And that gives us purpose. That, or at least for me, it does. That gives me purpose is when I have that person, that I'm apprenticed to saying, well, here's the next thing you should do, or just to slow down, just have fun doing this, because I can take it from that person. But it's the people who think they're doing me a favor or talking me down or like, all right, slow down, new guy. That always feels kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Patronizing.
What?
Patronizing.
Well, I mean, it is patronizing, but I feel like it's almost like I'm being punished in a way,
Right.
For trying too hard. And it's like, well,
okay. So I know we're almost.
Yes.
One of the things I want to talk about is that the fact that peers sometimes treat dependents like their children. Like, have you encountered that issue where you have to push back and be like, I'm a grown up? None of you have had that issue?
No, but that means that we have good mentors.
Yeah, they keep those peers away from you.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, I think that was something when we all said how you would pick your, like when you asked us that question about somebody came to you and whatnot, we all said there has to be a real reason that you gravitated to that person to begin with. And I think that's because, you picked a panel of people that made good choices. I'm sure you could talk to a lot of other dependents who don't feel that way.
Yeah, well, my first choice was not a good choice. And he's a great man, but he was not a good Laurel for me. And I gave back my belt. That's the whole long story. But anyway, okay, so that's for another time, young Pat.
We're gonna do a Zoph only. Simply SCAdian.
I want to be a part of that.
You know what? That's, guys, write it in. Again, I'm gonna put on my Simply SCAdian hat for a minute. If you want a show where you write into the Facebook page and ask Zoph questions, that would be an awesome show, and I will take care of it. But you got to write on the Facebook page.
I am here for that. I'm trying to co-moderate that one.
I'm a Laurel. I'm not allowed to have a show about me on our show.
Yeah, but it's all right. Well, then you can ask me to ask her question.
Okay. All right. So anyway, so let's tackle this last question that all of you were told. Keep it as short as possible, please. Raphael, what can the SCA do better?
So I'm going to pick only 3 things.
Okay.
So the first thing, websites. Your website for your event should say what the tournaments and the classes are a month in advance. It's not complicated. As well, someone who doesn't know all of the SCA jargon, for you to read your website, because they do not know what an exchequer is. They do not know what gold key is. like have websites that people can read and that have accurate and updated info. Second, start things on time. Similarly, not terribly complicated, but if you have more than one responsibility in a day, or if you have a kid, or if you have to go help with this other thing, and then this tournament or that class starts 30 minutes late, you're essentially barred from doing it. And then the last one is we need to kick more of the racists out. We're not good at it. There was like a thing recently of this guy was like joining a bunch of swastika waving Nazis in full ass garb, assaulting people. And I was like, hey, we should probably kick that guy out. And you're like, well, he didn't do anything bad at an event. I'm like, man, he said he wants to kill me. Let's just kick this guy out. It will save me so much time. And then we didn't. So kick the racists out.
Yeah, amen to that. All right, Solveig, what can the SCA do better?
Diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm going to beat that drum every day. It's my mundane job, and it is something I'm passionate about as well. Not everybody can be there emotionally. Not everybody can be there physically all the time. Pay attention to that. Not everybody is cis, white, het male. Like, come on.
Yeah. Tariq.
I'm just aghast. They're racist in this organization. Oh my goodness. Let me clutch my pearls. Lord have mercy. I am going to go in a totally different direction. I think it would really be good if we could introduce what we do to students and kids of color. We do a bunch of demos and things out in the public, but I very rarely see anybody that looks like me at those things. So if it's a matter, I would like to see us just reach out more into neighborhoods that I used to be in when I was a kid and used to do those things, and even if it's a small thing or somehow reaching towards underserved communities to say, hey, you might like this thing, you might not, come check it out.
All right, Lucas.
I've listened for 3 years now. I've listened to people answer this question. And I agree with everything everybody said. Not that I don't think that those things are important. I certainly do. I just don't want to tread the same ground. The thing I think the show is meant to do is to showcase those people who don't have the peerage voice yet. And I would love way more understanding in that. Just because that person is new to your group, new to your barony, new, doesn't mean they don't know anything. Because I feel like that puts a lot of people off. Because I know for me, when I first joined KWP, there were people that talked to me like I never acted a day in my life, where I had more experience than any 12 of them put together. You know what I mean? And just because they didn't know me, they thought I had nothing to offer. And I really feel like we need more lamplighters and less gatekeepers. And that would lead itself to a lot of these other issues finally being covered. You know what I mean? But the old guard, in a lot of ways, want to retain what they have. And they're so afraid they don't want to share. And I've noticed that in a lot of, and that's not just coming from my experience. That's also me listening to people talk about it. And they, it's a giant game of double dutch. Sometimes you're just trying to find that way in, and they don't want to. And then that's why people leave.
Yeah. All right. You have been watching Simply SCAdian, no title required, the dependent panel with Lucas, Solveig, Raphael, and Tariq. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was really wonderful to get your input and your thoughts. And Raphael and Solveig, let's talk about having you as like a full-fledged solo guest on the show next season. I think I'd love to continue the conversation with both of you. Thanks for watching. We will catch you next season, which starts in September. You have been watching Simply SCAdian, no title required.
Can I get a brooch?